I was basically a heroin addict, a crack addict for almost 20 years of my life. I have 2 children that I definitely wouldn't win any Mother of the Year awards with. I pretty much was apart from my family. I know this sounds crazy, so a lot of people are probably gonna think I'm crazy when they watch this video. I had someplace to sleep. I was tired of sleeping outside. I had something to eat all the time, and really I think this time in prison is pretty much what saved me. I don't think I would be alive right now if it wasn't for this time in prison that I just did.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show. Obviously, we're out in the field. It's Dave and I, and we also have another special guest who is joining us in this video. You know, for the longest time, you guys have asked us, Joe, you need to introduce a female on After Prison Show who can talk about what prison is like for a woman. And today, we're gonna be doing just that, introducing all of you to a woman named Shannon, who just served 5 years in prison and has only been home from prison for 12 days. And the only reason we're even able to introduce you guys to Shannon is because of this guy right here. Dave, I wanna first thank you for doing what you're supposed to do. You know, Dave, you were going to see your probation officer, and when you were leaving, you met Shannon.
Yeah, I guess it was just a luck of the draw. I ran into Shannon and we began to talk, and I realized that she had a very compelling story that could help somebody else. I figured if we could get her on the show and share her story, there'd be a lot of people that could
Relate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Shannon, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with us. I know this has got to be a completely overwhelming situation right now with the fact that you've just come home from prison, you've only been released for 12 days, and now you're already in Hollywood. So I want to, thank you for taking the time to meet with us and to also be willing to share your story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything's overwhelming at the moment, so.
Well, we're going to try to take it easy with you. We don't want to be too overbearing. I know we can be. And I'm sure it's already been a lot just with us meeting with you today. Because really it was my first time meeting you today, Cody's. We've even got Danny with us as well. We brought the entire crew to come meet you. That's how much of a big deal this was to us. And again, just can't thank you enough. So you've only been released for 12 days.
Yep, 12 days.
And talk to me a little bit about what it's been like for you since being released.
I mean, it's been overwhelming, definitely. I've been spending a lot of time with my family, my granddaughter. This is really the first time I've had to spend with her while I was in prison. I really only got to meet her one time. I got to hold her when she was about 2 months old. So spending a lot of time with her, spending a lot of time with my daughter, trying to get stuff done. If I can just get like one thing done a day, that's pretty much, I feel like I accomplished something.
Right, so you're making some kind of objectives and goals for yourself and just trying to get anything that you can accomplish.
Yeah, pretty much. I got released from prison quicker than I thought I was going to, so I didn't really get the opportunity to do things, like how, get an ID, just the little stuff that most people get to do before they left. So I'm trying to get those little things accomplished, and, other than that, that's pretty much what I'm trying to do right now.
It's a positive when, you're able to get that stuff done beforehand. So it's just another thing on your plate, but you'll be able to get that stuff done. Don't worry about it. We've all had to go through those things coming home from prison.
And when we first began speaking with you, or when I first began talking to you today, I was surprised to learn that you got released without an ID. You got released, like you had mentioned, quicker than you had expected because you got some additional good time back. And you never got a chance to get your ID. You never got a chance to get a few of the things that they try to give to people, man or woman, who are reintegrating back into society. Just like he said, that could just add that much more pressure and that much more stress on your plate of things that you got to get done.
Right.
Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about your story just a little bit. If you would, share with us a little bit of who you are and, what led up to you serving the time that you did.
Okay. Well, pretty much, I started using drugs at, not a super young age, but at a kind of young age. I was on a pretty good track when I was, maybe 18, 19. And then I met this guy, and I probably should have known that he probably wasn't the best person to hang out. He had just done some federal time for trafficking heroin. And I went to work one night, and I came home, and him and my roommate were shooting up crack in my kitchen. And me being the person, I guess, that I am with an addictive personality, my first thing was, well, you're in my house, I want to do some too.
So you weren't even like really surprised. You were like, hey,
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the only thing I had ever done in my life was smoke pot, and I went straight from smoking pot to shooting up crack.
Wow.
So, I mean, I guess that's a pretty good jump, for somebody to do. But he's like, you're going to throw up. And I was like, he's like, well, let's at least do it in the bathroom. And it was kind of a love right from there. That was my first experience doing anything like that. And it was kind of downhill really from there. But, I had all these bouts of clean time and times where I would just spiral down really bad. There were times that I did really good and times that I did really bad. Like, I would go to school for a little while. I became a CNA. I worked hospice cases for a while. I managed marketing firms, and then it ended up where I was just completely on the streets. I mean, but basically, at the end, I ended up in prison. I was basically a heroin addict, a crack addict, for almost 20 years of my life. I have 2 children that I definitely wouldn't win any Mother of the Year awards with. I pretty much was apart from my family. And really, I think this time in prison is pretty much what saved me. I don't think I would be alive right now if it wasn't for this time in prison that I just did.
It goes without saying that addiction has definitely been a major battle in your life. Nobody here is here to judge you or cast any type of judgment against you. I mean, I've dealt with addiction, Dave's dealt with addiction, our friend Danny's dealt with addiction. It's just something that a lot of people experience in their life. And like you said, you would deal with addiction for about 20 years through the highs and lows, the roller coaster of times that you'll go through with that would ultimately lead to you serving the 5 years in prison that you did. Was this the first time that you were getting locked up? And if it wasn't, this was the longest time I can imagine that you had ever been locked up for.
I mean, I got locked up one time and put in jail just on a no bond, but I think I did like 9 days or something like that. So it was nothing long enough for me to even think about getting clean. I got out and got high in the parking lot before I even left the jail parking lot. So, I mean, it was nothing significant enough to make me see any kind of, light at the end of the tunnel where I wanted to get clean. I mean, it even took me years in prison to even think about wanting to change. I mean, the first couple of years in prison, I was still getting high, not on anything significant most of the time, but still getting high, and still, even if I wasn't getting high on drugs, finding other avenues to get high on.
And what do you mean by that, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, relationships or, just other things, that still give you a high. But I mean, I think I had an epiphany maybe that last year, and I don't even think it's the drugs, that it's just, needing to find changes in myself, like learning how to deal with things, or learning that it's not always me in a situation, like learning how to deal with my feelings, learning how to deal with things and not needing to get high to deal with those things. Like, I think I had a certain epiphany at some point in that last year of prison that maybe is going to keep me clean. Like, I think I'm going to do good now, but I think prison probably changed my life. I think it may have actually saved my life, because I think I probably would have ended up dead, honestly. Like, I think the cop that arrested me that day probably saved my life.
Shannon, I want to talk to you a little bit about when you first got locked up, though. Again, like you said, the longest time that you had ever served was 9 days. So you go from, being somebody who doesn't know anything about what it's like to serve time to being thrown into a prison sentence. What was that like just from the very beginning?
Oh, I mean, like in the very beginning, when I first got locked up, I still thought I was going to get bond. Like, I still thought that maybe I could get out, and then when I realized that I wasn't getting bond, oh my God, I was like, oh, it was awful. Like, I didn't think I was going to survive. I don't know if you guys went through that or not, but like,
I think that's only something that women go through. I'm kidding.
That was the end of the world for me.
I think the majority of people who get locked up always hold on to that hope that the next bond hearing is the one.
Yes, I mean,
and
you appeal it. Yes, and you appeal it, because I'd always been able to talk my way out of everything. Like, I would get arrested and then get arrested again, and somehow, like, I would always get bond. Like, they always managed to give me bond, and I don't know how I just couldn't talk myself out of it this way. It could have been because I was still nodding out when I went to the first hearing, or that I was falling off the bench when I went to see the magistrate, or it couldn't have been any of those things, or because I was back in front of that same judge again and they were just sick of seeing me, because, I was doing the same thing again and again and again. And I mean, you know, I guess when you take a step back and you look at it, like, those cops knew me by name.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't call me by my last name. They were knocking on the window and saying, "Come on, Shannon, come on, get out of the truck." I mean, these people were tired of dealing with me, and
You don't realize that though in that moment because you're not thinking clearly.
oh, I wasn't thinking clearly at all.
It's funny that we're sitting at a chessboard. Have you ever watched somebody play chess?
I've watched people play chess, yes.
But you know, when you stand there and you watch somebody else play chess, you can always see
the move they
moves.
should be making.
Yeah, you can always see the better move from the side.
Woo, boy, that's a ball right there. Dave getting deep on us.
Bars. But you can always see the better move from the sideline, what they should be doing.
Yeah, you're right.
And when you finally take the time to not be the person in the game and look at yourself from the side,
Well, you like a Mac Miller over here.
you realize like, oh, no wonder I'm where I'm at. I made that move.
Yeah.
You know, and it does. It takes a big person, and it's a giant step for anybody who wants to do better to finally do that. You know, so just from somebody who was, you know, a piece of crap for the majority of his life, I'm telling you, you're already on the right track.
Yeah,
Just being able to do that.
that judge looked at me and he told me, he said, "I wouldn't be doing you any favors by giving you bond today." And I remember him telling me that, and like,
Wow.
he was right. I mean, he was really right, because I mean, I was living on the street at that point, for real. I mean, for all practical purposes. I might have been able to find someplace to sleep, but for all practical purposes, I was living on the street. I was basically working to get high. I mean, I wasn't eating. I mean, I was 128 pounds when I got arrested, okay? I'm 160 pounds now, so I mean, like, it's pretty significant difference.
I was 165 pounds and I'm 240 now.
Yeah, so I mean, like,
Shut up.
so I mean, and I was miserable. I mean, like, I might have thought I was happy or halfway happy or something, but I wasn't. I was absolutely miserable. So at some point, I remember being thankful that I was arrested, because I was tired, I was exhausted. And I slept for pretty much like the first 2 weeks that I was in the jail. I mean, like, slept. I would wake up, I would eat probably 2 trays because I was hungry, and I would sleep. That's all I would do when I
So you were
first got to
dealing
jail.
with the illness. Was
Yeah,
that
I
was
mean,
a major
that was
part of it?
That was part of it too, because I mean, I was sick, but not so sick, because at that point when I had gotten arrested, I had managed to get myself clean off the opiates and was just mostly doing coke. So I was only coming off of Suboxone at that point, so I wasn't super dope sick.
Yeah, the detox is a little bit easier.
It's a little bit easier, but I was so tired, I was really mostly sleeping through that, to be honest with you, because I had been awake for days.
Talk to me a little bit about, you know, when the clarity sets in that you're getting ready to be serving this time. And
Oh, I was still in denial. I I really thought that they were that my sentence wasn't gonna be that bad. When they did the pre-sentencing report, it came back at, I think, gosh, what was it, 6 to 18 months or something like that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to get that much time. This is my first time, I thought, being in real big trouble, because everything else I had ever gotten was a slap on the wrist. You know what I mean? So when it actually came down to it, and they said, basically the sentence was 8.5 years with 3 years suspended, and then they gave me BCP.
so you had the behavior modification program.
Right. And as you know, that didn't work out for me. So
You bucked on the program.
I bucked on the program and didn't do it.
And this is a program that they have in men's prisons where, you know, if you're sentenced to BCP, I said behavior modification program, but that's not what it is. It's
Behavior control program.
Behavioral
corrections.
correction program or something,
something like that. They sentence you to this program. If you complete it, you get out in 18 to
You get out in 2 years.
2
Yeah,
years.
2 years. They send a thing back to the judge, which I had done a year in the jail, so I basically would have done 3 years.
And you just
So,
said you weren't doing this.
I said I wasn't doing it because I wasn't going to comply with all their little rules. Because like I said, when I first got there, I wasn't, you know, I wasn't going to, wasn't listening. I was still getting high. I still wasn't going to do what they wanted me to do. I still wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah, it was everything was still about me.
So at this behavioral, this BCP program that you were at, what level was this for in the women's? This is a level 2?
I was in a medium at Goochland. So
Okay.
it's a medium level facility, but.
Yeah, I think with the women, I don't think it's rated the same because there's only
Low, medium, high? Is that how it goes?
Yeah, because they have a few work camps, like
Okay.
like how Halifax is.
Yeah.
And then the 2 major facilities, which is Fluvanna and Goochland.
Yeah.
So you started this medium where the BCP is at, and then you buck on that,
Well, I started at Fluvanna, then I went to the BCP, which is in Goochland. Yeah, I bucked on their program.
And then they sent you to where from there?
No, I stayed in Goochland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my GCA level just went up. I went straight to a level 4. They gave me the 2 years and 3 months extra time.
So you had an opportunity to do, at the very most, possibly 3 years total. But because you bucked, you would end up serving 5 years.
Right. So because my release date would have been like August 29th of 2016. And then I ended up, but I got a little bit of good time back at the end, so I ended up getting out October 22nd.
You said it was August or October of 2016? When that time came around for you, what were you thinking? You were probably thinking I could have been released.
I mean, the whole thing is actually, I mean, I had made my peace with it because at some point I realized that I was going to get more college classes in. I mean, honestly, like a lot of people probably would have been bitter, and I'm not one of those bitter people. Like I really at some point made my peace with the fact that that cop arrested me because I felt like I had someplace to sleep, I was eating. I know this sounds crazy, so a lot of people are probably gonna think I'm crazy when they watch this video. I had someplace to sleep, I was tired of sleeping outside. I had something to eat all the time, you know what I'm saying? I was tired of looking for drugs. I mean, it was just so many years of doing the same thing all the time. And I mean, like after you do the same thing for 20 years, you're trying to hide your addiction for so long and functioning, you get tired of trying to hide it. And then you get to where you're just like, screw it. And you don't care if you're hiding it anymore. And then you get to the point where everybody already knows. So who cares if you're getting high or if you're going into a store looking like whatever. And you know, it's just at some point, it's just like, screw it. You know what I mean?
Since we're on this topic of, you know, the addiction, look, you spent 20 years, you know, getting high. You've been released for 12 days. Is it a scary thought to you that you could end up back in this, you know, getting high again? Or what keeps you most focused to not go back to that?
I mean, just looking back and seeing how miserable it was is the first thing. But I mean, I've made so many changes in myself at this point. I'm telling you, that extra time did something for me. Like I had time to work on myself. It really doesn't even have so much to do with the addiction anymore. It's not even the drug anymore. Like before, I think I just didn't know how to deal with my feelings, for real. I mean, like, and I don't know if that is how it is with other people who use drugs, but with me, I think that's what it was. It was like I didn't know how to deal with myself.
Well, I think with everybody, it's a case-by-case basis
Yeah.
on what it takes for them to get themselves right. Let's talk a little bit about the time, though. You served 5 years in prison. What was this time like? You know, there's a lot of misconceptions, or there's a lot of things that I can't even probably begin to imagine about what it's like for a woman to serve time. So, you know, this is going to be very interesting to talk about. But talk to me about, you know, what it's like to serve time as a woman.
You know, the everyday life.
Okay, well, I mean, it's not the pillow fights and slumber party that a lot of guys have the misconception about.
I've always thought that it was.
It's not. It's really not. I mean, there is some points of it that are probably a little bit like what a guy would probably fantasize about a women's prison being like, but I mean, for real, it's still prison. I mean, we're still patted down. I mean, you know, I just had to go ahead and tell you that first.
So, you know what, we can go ahead and wrap this up. Cody, wrap it. I'm disappointed. No.
I'm disappointed. This is bull.
I mean, you know, we still get patted down. I mean, it's still prison. I mean, like
Is it mostly female guards that work in there?
No, believe it or not, it's a lot of male guards, and believe it or not, I mean, you know, you'd think that the male guards would be easier or the female guards would be easier, but they pretty much treat us the same. I mean, like we still have, I mean, the rules are probably exactly the same as they are for us. We still try to sneak stuff past them and, you know, do all the stuff that you do. I mean, like.
Would you think it's harder for women in prison or a man in prison?
I think it's probably harder for y'all, for real, because, you know, our rules change. I'm serious, because our rules change compared to what happens in y'all's prisons, because, like, a lot of our stuff, like, they'll change little stuff and the guards will tell us, well, it's because of what happened here, or it's because of what happened here, and it's normally because of what happens at y'all's prisons.
Well, you know, I want to throw this in there as well. Always in the news, especially here in the state of Virginia, always in the news, you know, you hear about it so much, about the medical for women.
Oh, it's awful.
You know, I don't know if it's Goochland or if it's at Fluvanna, but, you know, there's a lot of women who have died at one of those prisons.
It's Goochland. Yeah, it's Goochland. There's this doctor there. Her name is Dr. Johns, and she's awful. There was a lady named Jennifer Addison, and I can remember for 2 years her saying her stomach hurt. And matter of fact, she was very smart. She knew she was dying, and she put her emergency grievances, she folded them up and put them in her socks so that when her family came and claimed her stuff, they would find her emergency grievances. Matter of fact, they just released something in the newspaper about it. She died from a bacterial infection and the flu. They had actually, she tried to commit suicide hoping that they would ship her to Fluvanna so she could get medical care.
Wow.
They put her in SEG and on 24-hour medical care, and they went to go take her to the shower, and like another inmate actually saw her, like she started profusely vomiting blood. But she wasn't getting medical care at all. They wouldn't take her to the hospital. She continually put in emergency grievances, and medical staff wouldn't see her. And she's not the only one. There's been a couple, like Karen Dodd, another lady. She got her blood pressure medicine changed and her heart medicine changed because Dr. John just up and decided to change it one day, and she died of a heart attack. It took them, I think, 12 minutes or 13 minutes for medical staff to get there, and there's no reason for that to happen. So they had to start having these emergency drills for medical staff. Like they would have people lay down and pretend. The guards were having people lay down and pretend.
Just to see how long it took for medical to respond.
And I
mean, did things get better after that?
Very little. But I mean, it's awful. I mean, like there's a reporter that's willing to talk to people from the Virginia Pilot. I passed out the numbers to a couple people.
So that's got to be a scary thing as a woman. I don't mean it to sound the way that it does, but you know, this is what was happening at this woman's prison.
It was really happening, and it could happen to anybody, and it's very scary because medical was just not seeing people. They just were not taking the time to see people, and the doctor just didn't give a crap about anybody, and that's just a true story.
Wow. You know, what about the violence there? Was there a lot of fighting?
There was a little bit, but not anything compared to Fluvanna. I mean, like Fluvanna had a lot more violence, I would say, but a lot of people were a lot of mouth. Every once in a while there was an actual fight, but not a whole lot of fighting.
And what would these fights stem from? Is this disrespect, or I just want to throw it out there?
Some disrespect.
Is this relationships?
There's relationship stuff. You know, the relationship thing's kind of serious. You know, you don't want to be messing with anybody else's girlfriend. That's pretty serious.
Does that happen?
Oh yeah, it happens. That's pretty serious. Like that probably is the most cause of fights.
You know, Dave had asked a good question earlier before we had even started filming, and you know, I didn't even take it as seriously until I heard you answer it. But you know, you were asking about the house thing.
Yeah, I was asking, like, you know, I've always heard this from a couple different friends of mine, and then watching shows or whatever. You know, I've never been in a woman's prison.
Yeah.
Even though I fantasize about it. No, I'm just playing. But I've always heard, like, y'all like role play. Like,
I mean, they do role play to a point. I mean, like they'll say that's auntie or that's daddy or whatever. I mean, like they do role play to a point. Here's daddy, trust me.
Hey, she got the same haircut
so we got,
you do.
Hey, yo.
Hey, I'm just saying.
Hey, Danny, come here, man. Come here real quick, Danny.
Switching seats.
Tell him what I like to tell him all the time, Danny.
You're fired.
You're fired. You're fired.
Hello, buddy.
Danny in the background playing security. If anybody walks by, Danny, you know what to do, man.
Burn him in the eye.
What is that?
Burn him in the eye.
Golly.
What does all this sound like to you, Danny? I mean, you're sitting here hearing this too.
I'm listening, you know, and like I said, she did 5 years. In my perspective, that's a long time. I was talking with her earlier, and just because I got 40, it don't mean nothing. 2 years away from home and losing family is a psychological trip that people go through, emotional, coming back out here, fearing out here. Because my biggest fear was out here. I know what to do in prison, but what I do in prison, I don't want to do it out here.
Yeah.
So it's my biggest fear, is dealing with people. I didn't think people was compassionate, but after prison show, these guys and the viewers showed me that they are people who care and love you. And this is what I was saying to you earlier. I couldn't do what I've done if it wasn't for these guys and the viewers.
And you know, that's a big part of why Danny is with us today, especially when we made the introduction with you today, Shannon, is because, you know, he is our success story. And again, you are so fresh home. You've only been out for 12 days. You haven't even been out here for 2 whole weeks yet. You know, we wanted to showcase a little bit of our resume, and the best example that we have is this guy right here. But I want that to show, you know, what we're willing to do for you as well. We want to give anybody who's willing to give themselves a chance out here, possibly a better chance through any kind of help that we can provide. I can imagine when you got released, you probably got released with nothing. You know, can you tell me like a little bit about what you came home with and, you know, what you have?
Oh, I mean, I came home with like my paperwork, my fan, my TV, And
Y'all didn't even have AC.
No, we did there at the end. At the beginning, for the first 3 years, there was no AC, and we didn't have locking doors. We could still open our windows, but then they started changing the buildings around. No, I mean, I pretty much came home with a purple t-shirt, a purple sweatshirt, my jeans, and a pair of shoes because, like I said, I got released early, so I didn't get to, I didn't get to go to Kate's Closet. That's like the foundation that pays for our college and stuff there. So I didn't get to go to that. I came home, oh God, what else did I come home with? Pretty much that and some colored pencils and a handkerchief I'm working on, like a drawing I'm working on, but.
So talk to us a little bit about where you're living at
Well,
and what your living situation is as well.
Staying at my daughter's house until I can get my own place. I'm trying not to invade her house too much.
Do you have a room there? Do you got a bed there?
Well, I'm staying on her couch right now because she's got a 2-bedroom apartment and she's got my granddaughter in one room and her and her boyfriend are sleeping in the other. So I'm on her couch, which I don't really care right now, at least for now until I can get my own place because it sure beats a prison bunk with, the mats that you sleep on there. I
Absolutely.
could probably sleep comfortably on a floor at this point. My hips don't hurt anymore at least, but
So you come home with absolutely nothing, the little that you did mention that you have, and pretty much the clothes on your back.
yeah, I mean, I've been raiding my daughter's closet for now, so.
How's she feeling about that? Next question. So in the 2 weeks that you've been home though, or I can't even say 2 weeks because it hasn't been, in the 12 days that you've been home, have you been able to acquire anything in that amount of time?
I mean, no, not really because, my mom's been away and my daughter's been busy, but my mom's coming back hopefully soon, so.
Well, if we could do anything today, I'd like to be able to try to help you at least get some clothes. We've got a Salvation Army right around the corner that we can go to, possibly try to get you at least anything. I don't know what they'll have there, but if there's anything there that you see that you want, we'll help you get that. Again, this is only my first day meeting you. Dave's been talking with you on the phone for a few days since he's met you, basically trying to sell you on the idea of rocking with us. But if there's anything that we can do to help you today, I mean, we definitely want to do that. And, even especially moving forward, I guess is the better way to word that, especially moving forward, we definitely want to help you. And if you'd be willing to allow us to chronicle your journey. Because, there's a million questions I'm sure the two of us could ask you about what it's like in a women's prison. We could carry this on for quite some time for sure. You're home for 12 days. You don't have an ID. Obviously, you're going to need work. So talk to me a little bit about like the goals and the things that you want to accomplish out here. Here you are basically
Short-term goals.
Here you are at 26 years old.
26, 41.
You don't look it though,
Thanks.
I guess it's like the same for men. They say prison preserves you. Look at Danny, for God's sakes. He looks like he's 18 years old. He's in the best shape of all of us, and he's 3 times as old as some of us. So.
Oh shit, he is 3 times as old as Cody over there.
Yeah. But what are some of the goals that you have? Like, what do you want to accomplish out here?
Well, I mean, like for now, like my first couple goals are just to take care of the small things like, my ID, try to get my driver's license back, the small stuff, just try to get my family back in some type of order, get a job, little stuff.
What kind of work are you trying to do?
Right now, I'm not too picky. Like my,
Well, we can get you a roofing job.
I mean, I could probably be a laborer. I don't know how long I could last at that, but I do have some maintenance skills. I learned some maintenance skills in prison, but let's see, bartending and waiting tables is some of my skills. But
so restaurant work would be a major.
Work would probably be probably one of the easiest things to get into, honestly. I had a food manager certificate before I went to prison. I did do Serve Safe before I left, but I don't know if I passed the test. I'm sure I did. I'm just going to have to check into that, probably through the prison, I guess.
I can think of a couple of places right now that would be a good opportunity. Cody has a good opportunity as well, and I don't want to put that out there. But, let's just say, for example, that doesn't work out. There's some opportunities I can think of. Waffle House, what is it, IHOP, Hooters. I know both of those 2 places hire. What you laughing about Hooters for? I know a lot of people who came home from prison worked at Hooters.
Yeah.
And Waffle House, IHOP, and that's local.
I worked at IHOP when I came home.
They got a Denny's, but I wouldn't recommend that because that place is never really that busy. But you obviously want to get your life back together. You've dealt with a lot of negativity in your life, and you've got some clarity in your life now. And I can imagine, even as chaotic and even as overwhelming as everything may seem to you, still seeming so brand new right now, it's got to be an amazing feeling having the clarity in your life.
Yeah. Everything actually makes sense in my life for once. I know that sounds funny, but I mean, like, have you ever had a point in your life, I don't know, like, what your real story is, but, like...
Well, I never went to prison. I faked it, no.
I mean, where you question, like, did that really just happen? Or, like, am I making it up in my head? Like, I mean, like, that's how messed up I was at some point in my life, like, where I was really questioning reality. I mean, like, my mind was that far gone at some point. So, like, I mean, I actually do have clarity in my life today. And
that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was pretty far gone.
Well, we're happy you're home.
Thanks. I'm happy I'm home, too.
Look, there's one other thing I want to ask real quick. You mentioned college.
Yeah.
That's something that in the men's prison, well, where we were at.
Few and far between.
Few and far between. They've shut down a lot of the college programs for the men. The only thing that you can really get into are like the Bible study, religious courses.
And then they have some apprenticeship programs, like the HVAC program. And
well, yeah, they do have that. But the trades.
Yeah, the trades.
Not the college courses. What kind of college courses were available to you there, and what did you take?
I took English 111 and 112, and I took history, let's see which one. I can't remember which one.
So they just made it possible for you to accomplish credits.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is
I got to take
awesome.
a couple. I mean, I didn't get to take a whole bunch of them, but I got to take a few.
Wow.
Kate's Foundation paid for it.
And what is Kate's Foundation?
It was set up by one of the wardens that actually gave the property to, I guess her family. She was I don't know if she was the first warden or something. I'm not sure what it is. It's a foundation basically that helps support the prison, helps support the offenders, and they basically pay for college classes. And once a year, like, all the offenders get together, and horticulture grows a bunch of plants and sells them for the foundation, and all the people get together and crochet things and sell them for the foundation. It's like this huge deal. And they're really nice ladies. There's basically like this board of older women that come, and a lot of them are college professors and stuff like that. And they hire people to come into the school, like from Southside Community College, and they actually teach classes there and stuff like that.
Let me ask one final question real quick. And again, there's just so much that we can continue to talk with you about. But I want to ask this one final question. Talk to me about the trades available to the women. In the men's prison, we've got barbers. You can get a barber's license. You can do brick masonry, HVAC. I mean, there's a lot of different trades. Do they have trades available for the women?
They have Cosmo. They have horticulture. They have the computer thing. I forget what it's called.
So basically, they just don't have a lot of trades.
They don't have a whole lot, and then they have commercial foods. But commercial foods is basically like it's basically like serve safe. But you can also go out and work grounds maintenance, or maintenance with like the HVAC people and stuff like that, and you can get like some kind of certification.
Hours.
It's basically like apprenticeship hours. Yeah, it's basically what it is. So you can do that too if you want to. But I mean, there's no great programs like the Cosmo program. Like, you basically come out and still have to pay for school because the teacher doesn't really teach you anything and you don't get enough hours for it.
Right.
So I mean, like, the trades that they try to give you, I mean, at least they're trying. But
it's just not enough.
It's just not enough. So I mean, I worked as a tutor for a little while and taught algebra and a little bit of basic physics to try to help the GED for GEDs. Yeah, I did that for a long time. Yeah, I did that for the first 2.5 years I was there, maybe, and then I went to the laundry after that. But
well, Shannon, thank you for taking the time to meet with us and talk with us. Again, there's a lot that we can continue to talk about, and we definitely want to be able to chronicle what it's like for you to try to get your life back together out here. So I'm really appreciative of the fact that, you're willing to rock with us and you're willing to take a chance with us, because, you don't know us from Adam, but I can't tell you enough that we're good people, and you seem like you really want to get your life together. So we want to be here to help you in any way that we can as well.
Well, thanks guys for coming out here and talking to me.
Absolutely.